and a warm welcome to this episode of Today's Parent. I'm your host, Christine Kasina. In today's episode, we are talking about healthcare and kids, the danger signs to look out for, and just matters health and kids. In today's episode, we are hosting Ruguru Kimani, who's passionate about matters kids, young parents, and parents in general. She has a platform called excitingparenting.com, and she's also a pediatrician in training. Ruguru,
yes.
How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
It's awesome to have you back.
Thank you for having me here today.
Wonderful. Kids, I know it's a bit of a general topic, but we're going to ask very specific questions. So when it comes to kids' health, and being healthy means also picking, for example, good habits. So when it comes to healthy habits and children, where do children pick their good habits from? I know kids pick their intelligence from their mothers. You can't dispute that. So let's talk about healthy habits. Where do kids get them from?
So kids are like sponges. They absorb everything from everywhere they are. So they mostly pick their habits from their environment, from their parents, from their caregivers, and also from school. So literally, as long as they're exposed to everything, they pick it up. So we have to be careful with that.
And because mainly as parents, we think about the two of us. Say if we are mom and dad, we think about kids picking their healthy habits from us.
Yes.
I've never thought about us, and I think about school.
Yes.
You've made me think about it more broadly. So thank you for that. And I hope for other parents who are watching, it makes, you've broadened our perspective. Healthy habits. What are healthy habits? I wanted to ask you that, in fact, at the beginning.
Yes.
What would you define as a pediatrician, healthy habits?
Healthy habits are habits that keep a child away from infirmity, away from any disease. Something that keeps their immunity and their well-being in a good state. So it could be nutritional habits, educational habits, social habits. They are all rounded habits that make them proper.
Okay. So from a pediatric point of view, healthy habits when it comes to nutrition.
Yes.
I can think of, and we've discussed this over and over, eating healthy. A balanced diet. That's a healthy habit, of course.
Yes.
But in this age and time where now is the way of life, how do you get your child or have that conversation of, Baba or Mama, it's important for you to eat healthy. We don't always have to order in.
Yes.
Or go and get takeaway from a restaurant or something.
Okay. So one, you have to give them an incentive to understand why they need to eat healthy. Give them a reason why and explain to them in a child-friendly language. So one, let them understand, and also don't order pizza. You guys eat in the dining table and give them matoke in the sitting room. So also work together with them, make them understand, and also work together with them. And as long as they know the consequences of poor eating, they're obviously going to follow what you tell them to do.
Getting them to understand the why.
Yes, the
I
why.
like that part. I like that. My other question for you, for parents, what are some of the medications we must have in the home? But then also from a pediatric point of view, I know it will not be, even from a layman, I wouldn't want to advise anybody to go over the counter and just buy drugs because your child has a fever.
Yes.
But I know there are things we can control at home.
Yes.
What are the medications as somebody who is practicing, pediatry?
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
Okay, so for the medications, one, we know antibiotics and all those kind of drugs, we keep them away from home.
So antibiotics, no?
No, those ones, as long as they're not being prescribed by a doctor, as long as the child is not taking them at this moment, don't keep them at home. Self-medication causes drug resistance.
Self-medication causes drug resistance.
So, you see, most of the times, let's say you give your child all the first-line medication to drugs, they have a cough, you give them third line, you keep going. By the time they get to hospital, most of those drugs won't actually work.
Right.
So antibiotics, self-medication, away. So the ones you can actually keep at home. One, drugs for pre-existing conditions. For example, a child who has asthma. There's no reason.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Have a working salbutamol inhaler at home. Drugs for, fever drugs, paracetamol, you can have that.
Okay.
Oral rehydration salts in case of diarrhea. We've seen kids succumb to diarrhea in hospital. They come
because of dehydration.
Yeah, they're very dehydrated. Also, let's keep a thermometer.
Ruguru, there's a part where you mentioned first-line drugs and third-line drugs. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so in the medical practice, you can't use all drugs on a patient at the same time. So drugs are graded. There's the first line, second line, third. It depends on the kind of treatment and the kind of disease that you're dealing with.
Right.
So, for example, let's say, for example, for pneumonia, we can have amoxicillin as the first line drug, and then in case it doesn't work, you move to another drug and you move to another drug.
So that becomes a third line drug.
Yeah, and the second line, and it goes like that. So when you self-medicate, you might actually go to a chemist and buy a stronger drug.
When you should have started with a mild drug.
Yes, exactly. So it causes resistance, and drug will actually work in the hospital, and it's a headache.
Okay.
Yes.
Recapping on the medicines you spoke about that we should keep at home, paracetamol, yes?
Yes.
If my child has a recurrent condition, asthma and the likes, yes?
Yes.
And then the other one was?
Oral rehydration salts.
Oral rehydration salts. I remember that very well. How can we get to a point, especially in this society, I know a lot of us self-medicate.
Yes.
What are the dangers of self-medicating a child?
Okay, so when you self-medicate a child, one, you might actually be treating the wrong condition. So they may be having something different, but since you think this drug worked last time, it can still work this time around. You might actually treat the wrong thing. Number two, you might lead to worsening of the condition.
Okay.
Let's say a child has hepatitis, an example, hepatitis A, and you give a drug like, let's say you give Brufen. Most of these drugs will actually worsen the hepatitis because they're normally metabolized in the liver.
Okay.
So you might actually worsen a condition thinking that you're helping. Number two, as we say, drug resistance, which is a very big headache right now in the hospitals. Also, you don't know at home, you don't know the right dosages for the drugs. You might actually overdose your child and kill your child at home.
Wow, that would be, we wouldn't want that. We wouldn't want that.
Yes.
When we buy medicine, we get medicine from the hospital and we are told to give it for 5 days.
Yes.
And then we have half the medicine that has remained. Should we keep it? Should we throw it away?
We should discard it. We should
Even if it's basic paracetamol?
No, not paracetamol. Let's say antibiotics, just discard them. But paracetamol, since most parents nowadays know how to use paracetamol, it's written there, and it's not harmful as long as you're not using it to treat the condition at home.
Okay.
It's actually useful. Let's say if you can't go to hospital at night, you can give the child at night, then probably take it tomorrow. But for other drugs, discard them. Yeah.
Okay. From a pediatric point of view, sometimes, especially when you're second time, third time, fourth time mom, and I remember growing up, Calpol was for everything. When you had a stomachache, your parent gave you Calpol. And any other condition you had at that point in time. But my question is, when should I, as a parent, look at my child and, tell myself, no, I need to take this child to hospital? Of course, you will know as a parent.
Yes.
But what are some of the signs maybe we miss out on as parents? And then when we come to you as people in pediatry and you're telling us, why didn't you come sooner?
Yes.
Apart from fever, the usual fever and the symptoms that show up, manifest automatically.
So one, there's some symptoms that are not normal. So if you see a child having convulsions or seizures, so you shouldn't put a child at home thinking that the convulsions will end on their own. That's one of the things. Let's say you find a swelling in a child. For example, an abdominal swelling. That could actually be a tumor.
Really?
And you keep giving Calpol hoping that it will shrink back. So those are some of the things you should actually watch out for. Diarrhea seems like a normal symptom, but that is actually one of the biggest killers of children in hospital.
Really?
Yeah, diarrhea and vomiting.
So any diarrhea,
there is actually,
we should come to the hospital.
As long as you see diarrhea, just come to hospital. Whether it's bloody and bloody, just come to hospital.
We shouldn't assume that it will go away.
Yeah, they don't go away. Even if it goes away, you're lucky. But most of the times, it ends up being fatal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our topic for today is kids and health. What can we do as parents? We've talked about nutrition. In which other ways can we get our children to be overall, 360-degree healthy? How can we do that as parents?
When you should look at their social life also. Most parents think that as long as they're eating and they're studying, let's also look at their social life.
That's important.
One symptom of the social not being well is social withdrawal. We actually have depression in children.
How young?
Yeah, we have kids. We have children who come to hospital with depression. So let's say mostly adolescents. That's when things start, things start changing.
Yes.
They want
Body
to be
changes.
light. Yeah, so many things.
But I'm sure even for younger kids, I'm sure they go through stress and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you see a child is getting withdrawn, probably they're being sexually abused or maybe they're being depressed. Also, apart from looking at whether they're eating, whether they're playing with other children, also look at their classwork. The symptoms that actually appear according to classwork. So one, there is something, convulsive disorders. So we have something called absence seizures. So a child is in class and they just get a seizure. It just comes and they don't see how that math was done. So the teacher will keep getting upset that maybe the child is not listening in class, but you'll suddenly notice a sudden drop in their performance. And that's how you know the child is not doing well. Also,
It's called absence
seizures, yes.
And the child doesn't fall off or get a conversion,
No,
nothing. It
they
just get a blackout.
Yes, for like a couple of seconds. And they won't see how, they'll just miss out on something.
How do you diagnose something like that?
Okay, one day you need a good a good doctor who
Yeah.
actually knows what's happening,
Yeah.
and they'll be able to notice that the performance is going down. Instead of beating up the child, you'll notice there's something else that is going on. Also, a child who's very aggressive. You get reports from class. They're disturbing other children, but maybe they have a psychiatric condition. Maybe they actually have attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which can be sorted out very simply. Yeah. So also ask in school, ask at home, and ask socially.
I like that. We never think about the mental health of our children. Though we talk about it in the workspace.
Yes.
But even for children, it is very, very, very important.
It's very important.
That's important.
Yes.
But for younger kids, you have 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. I know for adolescents, then we can tell. I wonder for your way younger kids, how you can do that. Your early school-going children, yes.
Yeah, actually, those disorders such as autism and attention deficit,
yes.
ADHD, those ones appear when they're very young. At times, you'll have patients coming into hospital and they're complaining that the children are eating papers in Magazetti. Like they're very active, they're very aggressive, even those small ones, and you'll end up having them being confused for being naughty.
Ruguru, how about kids who eat different, I don't want to say weird, but they could be weird. You know, you have kids who eat soap. I had a neighbor who used to eat the family curtain. My son used to eat stones. For a parent who's watching and they're wondering, why does my child eat paper and these other kind of things? What would you tell them?
So one, as a parent, you need to assess whether this is out of curiosity or do you think there's actually a problem. Because as I had talked earlier, there's a parent who noticed the child was eating newspapers a lot and he was being too hyperactive. So that's, you can actually pick up something from that. But then if it's out of curiosity, you can overlook it.
Okay.
But then I actually learned recently that if a child is eating a lot of soap when you're actually washing them, it's a sign of a deficiency.
Really?
Yes.
I wonder which one.
Yeah, it's iron.
Iron
Deficiency when a child is eating a lot of soap when you're washing them. So as long as, if you think it's too much, the parental instinct.
Yes.
Work on it. If you can simply overlook it, just let it go.
I didn't know their kids were eating soap. I know mine was eating mud and stones. So their children are eating soap.
When they're showering, it's a struggle. You either have to wash them or they eat the soap. Yes.
I hear you. Yeah. How about we take a short break and then we continue when we come back? Welcome back to this episode of Today's Parent, where we are talking about kids and health. Ruguru, we have a question from Cosmas, and Cosmas' question is why, or if it's important for us to get our children to have an annual wellness check. Should we not?
I've noticed that it's only in this setup where people don't like going for annual checkups, but they are very, very important.
What do you mean in this setup? Or you mean as
let's say in the African community, people don't go for annual checkups. People only go to hospital when they are sick. Yes. And you see interesting things like weight measurements, they're done during those annual checkups.
Right.
So you won't be able to monitor the growth of the child, the height, the length, probably any chronic condition you would not have seen it earlier. So I think annual checkups are very important.
I think that's important. It's very few. Even in my own circles, I can't think of any mom who just woke up and took their child to hospital and said, "Can you check my child head to toe if they're fine?" I've never. Maybe it's a culture we need to change.
Yes.
Maybe it's a culture we need to change. Another question from a lady called Pauline who sent an SMS on our 22999 number. And her question is, my son is 11 and a half and very allergic to milk. How can I help him?
Okay, so allergy to milk, that's what we call lactose intolerance. It's quite common now with children. And the things that we're actually currently working on is, one, the child can actually avoid milk. Avoid milk, which is a bit difficult because you want to have cereals with milk. So you can move on to other things. For example, almond milk or coconut milk. Those are lactose-free items.
The options are coconut
milk and almond milk and also soy milk.
Why do they sound expensive?
Yeah, they're very expensive.
They're expensive.
They're expensive, yes. They're actually expensive. But soy milk is quite common in our setup. Now people actually
that's
buy
a good
soy milk. Yeah,
alternative.
it's a good alternative. Also, we have some companies which have come up with lactose-free milk in the country currently. So that's another option. And also, if not for that, if at all they want milk products, there's some products that have a little bit lactose at a lower level.
Right.
For example, yogurt. So if at all the child is lactose intolerant and it's the flare-ups are not very bad, they can probably have yogurt because
Is it?
the lactose levels are lower, yes.
So yogurt could be a good alternative.
It could actually be a good alternative.
Okay, that's good to know. Another question, how can we prevent our school-going children from getting flus and colds? I think this is a big one, especially for all parents, because when it comes to those, your July months or cold months, it can be, it's something you don't want to deal with. Is there anything we can do as parents?
So one, you need to ensure that the immunity is at point.
Immunity?
Is at point, yes. We have the immune boosters and the immune depressants.
Okay, so let's go back. How do I build my child's immunity, my school-going child? How can I do that?
Yes, so one day is a balanced diet. It goes all back to diet. For example, especially vitamins, make sure they're having the fruits. Also, we can have supplements. These omega, the omegas that people give their children.
You can do that?
Yeah, the fish derivatives.
Is
They're
it?
actually immune boosters. But then you have to be careful with this, not to bring up allergies. So go to a doctor first, then have it prescribed. Also, balanced diet, immunity. So let's fix the immunity first.
Okay.
And for any chronic condition, make sure it's well controlled
Okay.
to avoid depressing the immunity.
Growing up, a lot of us were given cod liver oil. Do you remember?
Yes.
Does it help with immunity, or it's something our parents just came up with?
No, it actually helps.
It does?
Yeah, it's a fish oil derivative. What I had spoken about earlier. So
Yes.
these things actually help. But then they should actually be done with moderation.
What does moderation mean?
One, I said you go to a doctor and have it prescribed, and have the correct dosages given. Because you see, if you overdo it, you could actually bring up allergies and flare-ups of asthma. Yeah, a lot of proteins can actually cause allergies in children. Yes. Yeah. So an example is, okay, in the same line, cow milk also brings up allergies because it has more protein than breast milk.
Okay.
So be careful with how much of omegas you give.
I didn't know cod liver oil, you need to have it prescribed by a doctor.
Yeah, you just don't give it.
You don't
the way
just
you
buy
feel
it over the counter?
No, you can actually buy it, but then first of all, let the doctor tell you how much you should give a child, depending on age. Yes.
That's a good point. Another common question that gets asked, how do I sleep with a newborn?
Okay. Sleeping with a newborn.
I know it's a touchy topic,
Yes.
but what is your sentiment on that?
So you can put them, the people prefer sleeping with them in the same bed or having their own cot. It depends on what you want. But then sleeping with the newborn, make sure there's ample space between you and the newborn. You know, you might sleep and smother the child. So let's say if your skin or your body covers the orifices, the nose and the mouth, the child is going to suffocate.
True.
Yes, so make sure there's space between the two of you. Also, if you're breastfeeding, breastfeed when you're awake, preferably when you're sitting down. You've had cases of children being smothered by their mother's breasts.
This is the first time.
Yeah, that actually happens. So let's say you're dozing off and the breast falls on the baby's nose and the nipple is in the mouth. So the child just suffocates and dies. And you wake up
And
in
we
the
have
morning.
confirmed cases?
Yes, we've actually had some. And you actually, and then when you wake up, you don't know what happened. Yeah, so make sure you breastfeed when you're awake, have space, and make sure they sleep well. They are well fed, they're dry, yeah, and also make sure that there's no smoker in the house. Because if let's say there's a smoker in the house, the child is going to have some respiratory conditions and they won't be able to sleep at night.
Just to build up on that point of sleeping and babies, on this show all the time, and we are lucky to be hosted by somebody who does kids furniture, baby furniture.
Okay.
And they have beds, by the way, that you can put besides your adult bed. Pull it down, bring out your baby, breastfeed your baby, and put back the baby. Yes. So this would be a good opportunity for the moms and dads who are watching to check out Little Cribs as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the cribs around. Yeah, and they're really, really good. Yeah, exactly. To be able to sleep well, the child sleeps well, and you also sleep well.
Absolutely.
And there's no interference between the two.
Absolutely.
And also there's something about sleep training, but it's done for a little bit older children. Sleep training is really good for children.
Most of us wish we did, but we
do
did.
it. Yeah, the child sleeps well and the mother doesn't get tired at night.
And the good thing I hear about sleep training, it's never too late to do it.
Yeah,
it's never too late. Because if you don't get good sleep as a parent, can you imagine?
You won't be able to function the next day. You're tired, you go to work, you're just tired, the child is tired.
Yeah.
You have a messy home.
Yeah, that's a very,
It's very
not
hard.
a good environment.
Yeah.
Can children take energy drinks?
Children energy drinks? No.
Absolutely no.
Absolutely no. One, they give them too much. You know, children are already energetic. They're already hyper. So if you give them energy drinks, they get hyperactive and it's chaotic at home. Also,
Yeah.
they're also not good for their health. Let's stick to milk and good drinks, but not energy drinks.
And even apart from, energy drinks, these other, your usual soda, so
Sodas.
much sugar, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sugar. Actually, that's why we have diabetes among children.
You think?
Yeah. One, okay, we can have the type 1 diabetes, the juvenile type, that is normally genetic.
Yes.
But you can also have the type 2
that
is also-
developed. You get it over
Yes.
time because of what you're doing and your food choices.
Yes. So if you keep giving your child sodas, energy drinks, fizzy drinks,
Fizzy drinks.
yes, that's why they're going to develop such conditions at a very young age.
It makes me wonder because yogurt has sugar, no?
Yeah, it has a bit of sugar,
A bit of sugar.
but you can compare it with the artificial flavors and
No.
sugars put in those other things. But you can
No.
make homemade yogurt if you want to.
Maybe that's the other thing we need to be doing.
Yes.
To
Making
try as
homemade
much as
things.
possible to make homemade food,
Yes.
homemade drinks, fresh juices.
Yes, those ones are perfect.
Is there one meal, Rogoro, growing up, and we've had this gospel over and over, the most important meal of the day is?
Breakfast. Breakfast.
Is it still the gospel truth?
Yes, that's what we preach everywhere. Breakfast is very important. Let me
For
give you
children.
an example. Yeah, they've been sleeping for 8 hours. You've literally been starving for the last 8 hours. So in the morning, your energy levels are very low. Then you expect them to go to school and still capture things. So breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
So that remains what it is.
Yeah, it is.
For a parent who's watching and maybe possibly they can't afford a fancy breakfast, what would you consider from a pediatric point of view to be a healthy, substantial meal for breakfast we can give a child? Even for a parent in Mashinani,
Okay.
what can they do?
So for breakfast for children, we mostly advise them to have, they should have a lot of carbohydrates for energy for the whole day.
Ah,
Yes. So you can have things like sweet potatoes, if at all you're in the village, or you can have, or actually, you can actually substitute it with food. If you can't afford things like Weetabix, let's say last night's meal can actually be substituted for breakfast in the morning. If you had ugali and skuma, you
That's
can
a
fix
good
it
point.
there. Yeah. So you can have food for yesterday or normal carbs that are good for the children.
okay. And for your born town child, the first time they see a cassava or a sweet potato,
Yeah.
they can't relate. From a pediatric point of view, how can we get our children, in the towns especially, to appreciate, your traditional foods? How can we do that?
If you give them when it's raw, okay, not raw, when it's just tasteless, the children won't actually eat it. But there's a way we can prepare these foods to make them tastier and fancier for the children. One, you can fry them. You can, you can probably blend them and give them as, something
Like a
to
smoothie.
eat. Yeah, it's a smoothie, by the way. Yeah, so, change the food into something tasty for the children.
I've just wondered if you can do a smoothie of sweet potatoes and
Yes.
mango.
It would actually be tasty. I've never tried it, but it could actually work.
It sounds yummy.
Yeah, and they're eating the right thing. It could actually work. It could
I
work.
find cassava to be very bland. You?
Yeah, I wouldn't eat that myself.
Ndoma?
But
Do
I
you?
fry them. I fry ndomas and I fry
Oh.
cassavas. Yeah. You just shallow fry them on a pan. The kids will actually, my siblings eat those things.
With onions.
No, just oil and a bit of salt. And it's very tasty. Just turn it both sides and they'll eat it. They won't even realize they're eating.
Before the world became very capitalistic, it would have been very nice if Africans would have come up with ndoma chips.
Oh, yes. Oh, by the way, yeah, we have that in the market right now. Not ndoma. Okay, but I make them at home. We only have banana chips, raw bananas, and cassava chips. We don't have ndoma.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe they're
Think
expensive.
about it,
I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe they're expensive to make.
Probably, maybe.
Sounds like too much. Because the taste of... I struggle, even in my own home, to get my kids to love the traditional foods. Because these other ones are easily available. They've grown with bread. There's sausage, Weetabix here and there.
Cereals.
Yep.
It's simple. But these are the ones you have to really just tweak them a bit to make them nice for them to eat. You've seen ugali chops.
Ugali chops?
Yes. When you cook ugali, you slice it into thin pieces and then fry it on both sides.
That's an idea.
Yeah, and they're actually snacks, but the kids will eat it. And they won't want crisps.
And that's a good idea, especially for leftovers.
Yes.
That's a good idea. Speaking of which, I'm just thinking, weight and weight issues. When you have a child struggling with obesity, how does it affect them in class, if at all?
Obesity and bullying, that's a big thing. One, they get bullied a lot. They're called things, Fat Joe, you know, all those things, and they affect the immunity.
And mental health.
Yeah, and mental health. Also, the child is limited on taking part in some activities. If the others are running, the child can't run. So it's a big problem. Also, these children who are obese, you probably might find them having, you know, obesity is also a form of malnutrition.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It can either be on the upper side or on the lower side. So at times, you might find them getting very sick. Maybe they're the ones who go down with diabetes. So they'll also miss out in many activities in school.
That's true. That's when you mentioned especially type 2.
Yeah.
You know, this topic for kids and health,
Yeah.
it's something we can talk about this for many, many hours. And I have many, many curious questions.
Yes.
And one curious one is, when we were growing up, I remember our rucksack, the one we used to go to school. It looked like something from a military movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Can you remember it? It was green. There was no Mickey Mouse and Hannah Montana, any fancy thing on it.
Yeah.
But back to my question. The backpacks that our children are carrying, do you think they affect them in a way?
So
Their
for
back, can it affect them?
So for a good backpack, that's some things you should look at. One,
So there's
the
a way of
straps.
choosing a good backpack.
Yes. One, the straps. If a backpack has very thin straps and it's a very big backpack, it could actually cause shoulder injuries on a child. And it's going to make them very tired and they're going to have back pain.
There you go.
Yeah, so the size of a backpack, the straps, and also probably how it's locked up, security, so things don't get stolen from a bag from a child. Yeah, so just choose a good backpack for the child, yes.
Okay. So that's important, yeah?
That's very important.
And you know, for some kids, they have to walk for distance, for a long distance to get to school.
Yes.
And they have this heavy load that they need to carry all the way to school and then back again and come back with homework. So yeah, that can be something.
Yeah.
Kids and health, what can a parent do that we are not doing? You know, from your point of view, especially from a pediatric point of view, what can we do?
Okay, what I've noticed currently is bringing a child to hospital when you're supposed to bring them. Most of the times we have parents who overstay with children at home, they're self-medicating them, they're trying to treat them, but the time they bring them, it's too late. So I think we should be prompt enough to bring children to hospital when they should bring them, not waiting when it's too late.
Wonderful. All right. From your perspective of somebody who runs a platform that parents can learn from, excitingparenting.com, and from you as somebody who's practicing pediatry, what final word of advice can you leave with our parents?
Okay, one thing I'd let them know is that health is important, and let's not raise children who will have to recover from their childhood.
Wow.
Yes.
Let's not raise children
Who will have to recover from their childhood.
That's a deep thought.
Yes.
And on that note, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Thank you, Ruguru, for coming through.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Today's Parent, where we talked about kids and health. And I know you've learned something from Ruguru Kimani. My takeaway from this episode is one thing. Let us not self-medicate our children. We take them to hospital, and even annual checks. That is something we need to invest in. Thank you so much for watching. I have been your host, Christine Casina, and this has been Today's Parent. And of course, if you're looking for kids furniture, make sure you head over here at Little Cribs, the home of fun, exciting, durable, affordable kids furniture. For parenting resources, go to www.supermamas.co.ke, and now you have another resource, excitingparenting.com as well. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.